Taemin stood at the back of the Great Hall, watching the other species take their places at the council table. His human uniform looked plain next to the shining armor of the Corvan warriors and the flowing robes of the ethereal delegates. The massive chamber could hold thousands, but humans were given only 10 seats in the very last row. The Galactic Council met every month on the space station called Unity Prime. Representatives from 47 different alien species gathered here to make decisions about trade, war, and peace across the galaxy. Humans had been part of this council for 50 years, but they were still treated like unwanted guests at a fancy dinner party. Taemin had been Earth's diplomat for 5 years now. Every month he came to these meetings with hopes and proposals. Every month he left disappointed and angry. Today would probably be no different. The Zephyrian Chancellor called the meeting to order. Chancellor Vextar was 8 feet tall with blue skin that seemed to glow under the chamber lights. His people controlled the biggest trade routes in the galaxy, which made them very powerful. He looked at the human section with obvious disgust. "Before we begin today's agenda," Chancellor Vextar announced, his voice booming through the hall, "I want to address a ridiculous proposal we received from the human delegation." Taemin felt his heart sink. He had spent weeks working on that proposal. It was a simple request for humans to be allowed to explore 3 uninhabited star systems near Earth. The systems had no valuable resources, and no other species wanted them. "The humans want permission to expand into empty space," the Chancellor continued with a laugh. "They believe their primitive technology can somehow succeed where advanced civilizations see no value. This shows exactly why humans remain in Class 9 status." Several alien species made sounds that Taemin had learned were their version of laughter. The insect-like Veltar clicked their mandibles in amusement. The crystalline Nexari chimed like broken glass. Even the peaceful Luminants, who were made of pure energy, flickered in what seemed like mockery. The Hive Queen of the Veltar rose from her seat. She was massive, with 6 arms and compound eyes that reflected the chamber lights like mirrors. "Honored Council," she said in her buzzing voice. "Perhaps we should be grateful that humans know their place. They make excellent janitors and food. Service workers, why waste time on their fantasies of exploration?" More laughter filled the chamber. Taemin clenched his fists, but stayed silent. Getting angry would only make things worse. On the space station where Taemin lived during council sessions, a human named Dong Wu was fixing a broken air recycling unit in the alien quarters. He had been working maintenance on Unity Prime for 8 years. The pay was decent, and it helped support his family back on Earth. But the way the aliens treated him made every day feel like torture. Dongwu crawled through the narrow service tunnel, checking pipes and filters. The tunnel was too small for most alien species, which was why humans did this kind of work. He could hear alien voices from the room above, discussing humans like they were discussing insects. "I heard they only live for about 100 years, said a voice that sounded like grinding metal. That was a Nexari speaking. "Such short lives, no wonder they cannot accomplish anything meaningful." "Their brains are so simple," replied another, voice smooth and musical, and ethereal. "They think with emotions instead of logic. Very primitive." Dongwu had heard these conversations countless times. The aliens never bothered to lower their voices around human workers. They did not think humans were smart enough to understand anyway. He finished his repairs and crawled back out of the tunnel. A young Corvan officer was waiting for him, tapping his foot impatiently. The Corvans looked like humans but were much taller and stronger, with gray skin and yellow eyes. "About time," the officer snapped. "The filter in my quarters is making noise. Fix it immediately." "Yes, sir," Dongwu replied, gathering his tools. He had learned long ago not to argue with alien officers. Meanwhile, in the research section of Unity Prime, a human scientist named Bo-Ra was working late in her small laboratory. She had discovered something important about quantum energy patterns, something that could revolutionize space travel. But every time she tried to present her findings to the Science Council, they dismissed her without even looking at her research. Bo-Ra stared at the data on her computer screen. The patterns were clear and beautiful. She had found a way to make space engines 30% more efficient. This discovery could save the galaxy billions of credits in fuel costs. But because the discovery came from a human, no one cared. She had submitted her research proposal 17 times in the past 2 years. Each time it was rejected with the same form letter. Research does not meet minimum standards for consideration by advanced species. Bora knew her work was brilliant. She had triple-checked every calculation, run every test dozens of times. The science was perfect. But in the eyes of the Galactic Council, humans were incapable of real scientific breakthroughs. Back in the Yadai's council chamber, the meeting continued with discussions of trade agreements and territorial disputes. Humans were not allowed to speak unless directly asked a question, which almost never happened. Taemin listened as the other species made decisions that would affect billions of lives across the galaxy. The Axiom Collective, a group of artificial intelligences, requested permission to build new factory worlds, approved without discussion. The militaristic Corvan Empire wanted to increase their patrol fleets near the galaxy's edge, approved after 5 minutes of debate. A small species called the Moralians asked for protection from space pirates. The council promised to consider their request, which meant they would probably ignore it. When the meeting ended, Taemin approached Chancellor Vextar. The massive alien looked down at him like he was looking at an annoying pet. "Chancellor," Taemin said politely, "I would like to discuss my proposal for human exploration rights." "There is nothing to discuss," Vextar replied coldly. "Humans lack the capability for independent space exploration. Your species should focus on the simple tasks you do well: maintenance work, basic agriculture, simple manufacturing. Leave exploration to species with superior technology and intelligence." Taemin felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "With respect, Chancellor, humans have been exploring space for over 200 years. We reached our own moon with primitive rockets. We built the first space stations. Ancient history," Vextar interrupted with a wave of his hand. "Any species can eventually stumble into space travel given enough time. What matters is advancement, progress, innovation. These are qualities humans simply do not possess." The Chancellor turned and walked away, his long robes trailing behind him. Several other alien delegates overheard the conversation and made their laughing sounds again. That night, Taemin sat in his small quarters aboard Unity Prime, looking out at the stars through his tiny window. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home world, a beautiful blue planet filled with 7 billion humans who dreamed of exploring the galaxy, of finding their place among the stars. But according to the Galactic Council, humans were nothing more than a useful labor force. They were good for cleaning, cooking, and basic repairs. They were too emotional, too short-lived, too primitive for anything important. Taemin thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was only 10 years old, but she already dreamed of becoming a starship pilot. What would he tell her? That humans would never be allowed to fly their own ships to other worlds? That they would always be servants to alien masters who saw them as barely intelligent animals? He closed his eyes and made a silent promise. Somehow, someday, he would prove them wrong. Humans deserved better than this. They deserved respect. They deserved a chance to show what they could really do. But first they needed an opportunity, and opportunities for humans in the galaxy were very, very rare. The emergency alarm woke everyone on Unity Prime at 3 in the morning. Red lights flashed in every corridor as the station's computer announced in multiple alien languages that all council members must report to the emergency meeting chamber immediately. Taemin rushed to get dressed, his mind racing with possibilities. Emergency sessions were rare and usually meant something terrible had happened. War, perhaps, or a natural disaster that threatened entire star systems. When he arrived at the chamber, the atmosphere was different from the usual monthly meetings. The alien delegates looked worried, even frightened. Their usual arrogance was replaced by something Taemin had never seen before: genuine fear. Chancellor Vextar stood at the center of the chamber, his blue skin pale and his hands shaking slightly. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed star charts of the galaxy's outer rim. "Honored delegates," the Chancellor began, his voice lacking its usual commanding tone. 6 hours ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something unprecedented. We have discovered an ancient artifact of unknown origin, approximately 50,000 kilometers in diameter. The hologram zoomed in to show a dark, spherical object floating in empty space. It looked like a black pearl surrounded by swirling energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with an eerie purple light. "We have designated this object the Void Nexus," Vextar continued. "Initial scans suggest it is approximately 4 million years old, predating any known civilization in our galaxy." A Nexari delegate, her crystalline body chiming softly, spoke up. "What makes this an emergency matter, Chancellor? Ancient artifacts are usually opportunities for scientific study, not causes for alarm." Vextar's expression grew even more grim. "Because the artifact is not dormant. It is actively affecting nearby star systems in ways we do not understand. 3 inhabited worlds in the Kepler sector have reported massive gravitational disturbances. Their moons are being pulled out of orbit. 2 of those worlds will become uninhabitable within weeks." Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. The Kepler sector contained over 40 billion inhabitants across multiple species. "Furthermore," Vexitar added, "the artifact appears to be protected by some form of adaptive defense system. We sent the 5th Fleet to investigate. 27 ships approached the artifact. None returned." The chamber fell silent. The 5th Fleet was one of the most advanced military forces in the galaxy, equipped with the latest Axiom collective technology and staffed by elite Corvan officers. General Thakmor of the Corvan Empire stood up, his gray skin flushed with anger. "You are telling us that an ancient piece of space debris destroyed an entire fleet? Impossible. The 5th Fleet had shields capable of withstanding supernova radiation." "See for yourself," Vextar replied, changing the holographic display. The new image showed the final transmission from the fleet's flagship. Taemin watched as 27 warships approached the dark artifact in perfect formation. As they came within 10,000 kilometers, the purple symbols on the artifact's surface began to pulse faster. Suddenly, tentacles of pure energy reached out from the sphere, wrapping around each ship. In seconds, the entire fleet was pulled into the artifact and disappeared. "The energy readings from this event," Vextar said quietly, "exceeded anything in our databases. Whatever this artifact is, it possesses technology far beyond our understanding." An ethereal delegate, her transparent form shimmering with worry, asked, "What are our options, Chancellor?" "We have tried everything," Vextar replied. "The Axiom Collective sent their most advanced AI probes. They were destroyed before they could gather any useful data. The ethereals attempted telepathic contact. The artifact's mental defenses drove 3 of their best psychics into catatonic states. The Nexari tried to analyze its crystalline structure, using harmonic resonance. The feedback shattered their equipment and injured their scientists. The council chamber buzzed with nervous conversation in dozens of alien languages. Taemin had never seen the galactic powers so helpless before. "How long do we have?" asked the Moralian ambassador, her small voice barely audible. "Our scientists estimate that if the artifact continues to affect local gravity at its current rate, it will destabilize the entire Kepler sector within 30 days. After that, its influence will spread to neighboring systems. Within 6 months, it could threaten the core worlds of every major civilization." The implications hit everyone at once. This was not just a local crisis. This was a threat to the entire galaxy. General Thakmor slammed his fist on his desk. "Then we send everything we have, every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We cannot let some ancient machine destroy our civilizations." "With respect, General," said an Axiom Collective representative, its mechanical voice flat and emotionless, "brute force has already failed. Our analysis suggests that direct military action only makes the artifact stronger. Each attack appears to feed its defensive systems." "Then what do you suggest?" Thakmor demanded. The chamber fell silent again. For the first time in galactic history, the greatest minds of 47 different species had no answers. On the lower levels of Unity Prime, Haiwan was finishing her shift in the military planning office. As a human, she was not allowed to participate in actual strategic planning, but she did get to see all the reports and data that came through the system. Her job was to organize files and make sure the right information reached the right alien officers. But Haiwan had spent 20 years in Earth's military before joining the Galactic Service. She understood strategy and tactics better than most of the alien officers who ignored her. And as she read the reports about the Void Nexus, she began to see patterns that others were missing. The artifact was not just randomly destroying things. Its attacks were targeted and precise. It eliminated threats, but left civilian ships alone. It destroyed military technology, but ignored scientific equipment unless that equipment was being used aggressively. Haywan pulled up the sensor data. From the Fifth Fleet's destruction, she had seen similar patterns before, during Earth's own wars. This was not the behavior of an automated defense system. This was the behavior of something intelligent, something that could distinguish between hostile and non-hostile actions. Meanwhile, in the engineering section, a young human named Jun Ho was working the night shift, maintaining the station's power systems. He had always been fascinated by alien technology, studying it whenever he got the chance. Most aliens thought humans were too stupid to understand advanced science, so they never bothered to hide their technical discussions around human workers. Jun Ho had overheard several Nexari engineers talking about the artifact's energy signatures. They were frustrated because the artifact seemed to use a form of energy that did not appear in any of their scientific models. But to Jun Ho, the energy patterns looked familiar. They reminded him of something he had studied in human theoretical physics, quantum consciousness fields. It was an old theory that most human scientists had abandoned because it was impossible to test with Earth's limited technology. The theory suggested that consciousness itself might be a form of energy that could interact with quantum fields. If that was true, then the artifact might not be a machine at all. It might be alive. In the xenobiology lab, Dr. Mi Young was supposed to be cleaning equipment after the day shift. But she could not stop thinking about the images of the artifact she had seen during the emergency broadcast. As a biologist, she was trained to look for signs of life in unexpected places. The symbols on the artifact's surface were not random decorations. They pulsed in rhythmic patterns that reminded Mi Young of neural activity. The energy tentacles that destroyed the fleet moved like the arms of an octopus, reaching and grasping with purpose and intelligence. Most importantly, the artifact's defensive responses were adaptive. It learned from each attack and adjusted its defenses accordingly. That was not machine behavior. That was biological behavior. Back in the council chamber, the emergency session was entering its 6th hour. Every suggestion had been tried and failed. The ethereals could not make mental contact. The Axiom Collective's supercomputers could not crack the artifact's defenses. The Corvan military could not destroy it. The Nexari could not understand its structure. Finally, Chancellor Vextar stood up, looking exhausted and defeated. "We are out of options," he announced. "Our greatest scientists, our most advanced technology, our most powerful weapons, none of them can solve this problem. We face the destruction of our civilizations, and we are powerless to stop it." A long silence filled the chamber. Then, unexpectedly, the Hive Queen of the Veltar began to laugh. It was a horrible sound, like grinding metal and breaking glass. "Perhaps," she said, her compound eyes glittering with malicious amusement, "we should ask the humans to try." The suggestion was clearly meant as a joke. More alien laughter filled the chamber. The idea that humans could succeed where advanced civilizations had failed was ridiculous. But Chancellor Vextar did not laugh. A strange expression crossed his face, and he was quiet for a long moment. "Actually," he said slowly, "that is not entirely unreasonable." The laughter stopped abruptly. Every alien delegate stared at the Chancellor in shock. "Think about it logically," Vextar continued. "We have tried every advanced approach. Evie, 2 weeks after the Council's desperate decision, a small human research facility on Earth's moon buzzed with activity. The best human minds from across the solar system had gathered in the cramped laboratories and meeting rooms. Unlike the grand halls of Unity Prime, this facility was simple and practical. The walls were bare metal, the furniture was basic, and the computers were old by galactic standards. But the humans working there did not care about luxury. They had a job to do. Sujin sat in the main conference room, surrounded by holographic displays showing every piece of data the aliens had collected about the Void Nexus. As Earth's leading expert in xenopsychology, she had spent her career studying how different species thought and behaved. Now she was looking for clues about how an ancient artifact might think. "Look at these attack patterns," she said to the assembled team. "The artifact does not just destroy everything that comes near it. It makes choices. It decides what is a threat and what is not. Dr. Kyung-ho, a philosopher from Seoul University, leaned forward in his chair. That suggests consciousness, does it not? You cannot make moral judgments without some form of awareness. Exactly, Soo-jin replied. But it is more than that. Look at how it responds to different types of approach. Military ships are destroyed immediately. Scientific probes last longer before being eliminated. Civilian vessels are left completely alone. Yoon-ji, a young artist who specialized in pattern recognition, pointed to one of the displays. The symbols on its surface change based on what approaches it. When the Corvin fleet got close, the symbols became angular and sharp. When the ethereal psychics tried to make contact, the symbols became flowing and curved. It is responding. Emotionally, Soo-jin concluded. Not just tactically, this artifact feels threatened by military force, curious about scientific investigation, and protective toward innocence. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For the past 2 weeks, every human team had been reaching similar conclusions through different approaches. The artifact was not a machine. It was alive, intelligent, and afraid. In another part of the facility, Junho was working with a team of engineers to design a completely new type of spacecraft. They had studied every failed mission to the artifact and noticed something important. The more advanced and military-looking a ship was, the faster it was destroyed. We need to build something that does not look threatening, Junho explained to his team. No weapons, no heavy armor, no aggressive design features. But how do we protect ourselves? Asked Minho, a veteran spacecraft designer. We do not, Junho replied simply. We go in completely defenseless. No shields, no weapons, minimal life support, just enough to get us there and hopefully get us back. The other engineers looked at him like he was crazy. Everything they had learned about space travel emphasized the importance of redundant safety, systems, and defensive capabilities. Think about it from the artifact's perspective, Junho continued. Every ship that has approached it has been armed and armored. Every ship has been designed for war, even the scientific vessels. What if we built something that could not possibly be a threat? Meanwhile, in the psychology section, Dr. Inho was developing a completely different approach to the problem. A former poet who had become fascinated by alien communication, he was studying how to make peaceful contact with an unknown intelligence. We have been assuming the artifact speaks our languages, Inho said to his assistant, Woo Jin. But what if it communicates in ways we have never considered? Such as? Woo Jin asked. Emotion. Pure emotion, without words or symbols. Inho pulled up recordings of the artifact's energy patterns. Look at these fluctuations. They are not random. They follow patterns that remind me of music or poetry or the rhythm of human speech when someone is trying to express deep feelings. Woo Jin studied the patterns. She had always been unusually good at understanding what people were feeling, even when they tried to hide it. You think it is trying to communicate through emotional resonance? I think it has been trying to communicate for millions of years, Inho replied. And everyone who approaches it with aggressive intentions or cold scientific curiosity completely misses the message. In the facility's small library, historian Ye Jin was working on a different piece of the puzzle. She had been studying ancient galactic history, looking for clues about who might have built the artifact and why. Most galactic species had myths and legends about the first ones, or ancestors, who supposedly existed before current civilizations. These stories were usually dismissed as primitive folklore. But Ye Jin was finding striking similarities between stories from species that had never had contact with each other. According to these legends, the ancient civilization had not been destroyed by war or disaster. They had simply disappeared, leaving behind only mysterious artifacts and a galaxy ready for younger species to inherit. What if they did not die out? Ye Jin asked her research partner, Hyun Woo. What if they transformed into something else? What if they became the artifacts themselves? Hyun Woo, who specialized in galactic diplomacy, found the idea fascinating. That would explain why the artifact seems to be testing anyone who approaches it. It is looking for something specific, some quality or characteristic that would make a species worthy. But worthy of what? Ye Jin wondered. While the human teams worked on their theories, the galactic situation was getting worse. 3 more star systems had reported gravitational anomalies. Panic was spreading across multiple worlds as billions of people prepared to evacuate their homes. The alien species were not idle. The Axiom Collective had built a massive computer array to calculate possible solutions. The Ethereals had gathered their most powerful psychics for a coordinated mental assault. The Corvan Empire was preparing to detonate nuclear weapons in the artifact's vicinity, hoping to disrupt its energy field. But the humans knew these approaches would fail, just like all the others. The artifact had already proven it could adapt to any form of attack or analysis. What was needed was something completely different. After 3 weeks of intensive research, the human teams came together to present their findings. The main conference room was packed with scientists, engineers, philosophers, artists, and military strategists. It was probably the most diverse group of human experts ever assembled. Su Jin presented first. We believe the artifact is a living consciousness, possibly the last survivor of an ancient civilization. It is not malicious, but it is extremely defensive and possibly traumatized by millions of years of isolation. Junho presented next. We have designed a ship that poses no possible threat. It looks more like a passenger transport than a military vessel. No weapons, minimal defenses, maximum transparency in all systems. Inho followed. We have developed a communication protocol based on emotional resonance rather than language or mathematics. Instead of trying to send data to the artifact, we want to send feelings. Curiosity, friendship, respect, and hope. Yejin presented her historical research. We believe the artifact is testing species to see if they possess certain qualities that the ancient civilization valued. Military power and technological advancement are not what it is looking for. Finally, Hyunwoo stood up to address the A room. We propose a mission completely unlike anything that has been tried before. A small crew, traveling in an unarmed ship, approaching the artifact with open minds and peaceful intentions. No demands, no attempts to study or control it, just an offer of friendship from one intelligence to another. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone understood that this mission would be incredibly dangerous. The artifact had destroyed every previous expedition. There was no reason to believe humans would be treated any differently, but there was also no alternative. The galaxy was running out of time. Commander Eun-ji stood up from the back of the room. She was one of Earth's most experienced space pilots, though her rank meant nothing to the aliens who controlled the galaxy's military forces. I will pilot the mission, she announced. If this is humanity's chance to prove ourselves, then we need our best people leading the way. Others quickly volunteered. Woo Jin would handle communications and attempt to make emotional contact. In-ho would serve as the mission's diplomatic specialist. Junho would manage the ship's systems and ensure they remained completely non-threatening. Hyunwoo would coordinate with the artifact if communication was established. Within days, word of the human mission spread throughout the galaxy. Most alien species reacted with amusement or contempt. The Veltar Hive Queen publicly stated that humans were volunteering for elegant suicide. General Thakmor called it a waste of time that will accomplish nothing except removing a few humans from the gene pool. But some aliens watched with interest. A few ethereal philosophers wondered if human emotionalism might actually be an advantage in this situation. Some Nexari scientists admitted that their purely logical approaches had failed completely. Even a handful of Axiom Collective AIs calculated that unconventional methods might have a higher probability of success than conventional ones. The human ship was completed in record time. It was small, simple, and absolutely beautiful. Instead of the angular, aggressive designs favored by military vessels, it was curved and organic, like a seed pod or a flower bud. Its hull was transparent. Hope's Dream traveled through space for 6 days before reaching the outer edge of the affected region. Long-range sensors showed the void nexus hanging in the darkness like a black pearl surrounded by swirling energy. Even from a distance of 50,000 kilometers, the artifact was beautiful and terrifying. Commander Yunji gathered her crew in the ship's small common area. Through the transparent walls, they could see the artifact slowly rotating, its purple symbols pulsing in, rhythmic patterns that seemed almost like a heartbeat. Final status report, Yunji said, trying to keep her voice steady. Junho checked his instruments. All non-essential systems powered down. We are running on minimal life support and basic propulsion only. No active scanners, no defensive systems, no weapons. We are as harmless as we can possibly be. Wu Jin tested her emotional resonance equipment one more time. It was a strange device that the human team had built, based on theories about consciousness and quantum energy. Most alien scientists would have laughed at the idea that emotions could be transmitted through space. But humans had always trusted their feelings more than pure logic. "Communication array ready," she reported. "I am picking up very faint energy patterns from the artifact. It almost feels like sadness. Deep, ancient sadness." Inho nodded. "That matches our psychological profile. An intelligence that has been alone for millions of years would naturally be melancholy. Our approach must be gentle and non-threatening." Hyunwoo monitored communications from the galactic monitoring stations that were tracking their mission. Dozens of alien fleets waited at safe distances, ready to retreat if the artifact's destructive influence spread further. "The galaxy is watching," he reported. "No pressure." Yunji smiled grimly. "All right, people. We came here to make history. Let us see if we can do it without getting killed in the process." Hope's Dream moved slowly toward the artifact, its transparent hull gleaming in the strange purple light. As they got closer, the symbols on the artifact's surface began to change. Instead of the sharp, aggressive patterns that had appeared when military fleets approached, these symbols were flowing and curved, almost musical in their movement. "It knows we are different," Wu Jin whispered, watching her instruments carefully. "The emotional resonance is changing. The sadness is still there. But there is something else now. Curiosity, maybe?" At 30,000 kilometers, the crew held their breath. This was the distance where most previous expeditions had been destroyed. But the energy tentacles that had reached out to crush the Fifth Fleet remained dormant. The artifact seemed to be waiting, watching, deciding what to do about these strange visitors. "Still no hostile action," Junho reported, his voice filled with amazement. "We are closer than anyone has ever gotten." At 20,000 kilometers, something remarkable happened. The artifact's rotation slowed, then stopped completely. The purple symbols on its surface brightened, and new patterns began to appear. These were not the geometric designs that had covered the artifact before. These were pictures, stars, planets, beings that looked almost like humans but were taller and more graceful. "Those are the predecessors," Ye-Jin breathed, recognizing the images from ancient galactic legends. "The first ones who supposedly built the early civilizations." "They look like us," Inho observed. "Similar body structure, similar facial features. Almost like we are related to them somehow." At 10,000 kilometers, the artifact did something unprecedented. A gentle beam of energy reached out from its surface, not to destroy Hope's Dream, but to scan it carefully. The beam passed through the transparent hull without causing any damage, examining every system, every piece of equipment, every member of the crew. "I think it is trying to understand us," Wu Jin said, her voice filled with wonder. "The emotional resonance is getting stronger. It feels hopeful, like it has been waiting for something and might have finally found it." Yunji made the decision that would change galactic history. "Take us into 5,000 kilometers, she ordered. "And Wu Jin, start transmitting." "Transmitting what?" Wu Jin asked. "Everything," Yunji replied. "Our hopes, our dreams, our desire to understand and be understood. Show it who we really are." Wu Jin activated the emotional resonance transmitter. The device sent out waves of pure human emotion, curiosity about the universe, love for family and friends, hope for a better future, and the deep longing to connect with other intelligent beings. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The artifact's symbols blazed with brilliant light, and suddenly the crew of Hope's Dream could feel something vast and ancient touching their minds, not invading or controlling, but gently making contact, like a hand reaching out in friendship. Words formed in their thoughts, not in any human language, but in pure meaning that bypassed the need for translation. "Who are you?" the voice asked, filled with wonder and barely contained excitement. Inho, as the mission's diplomatic specialist, took the lead in responding. Instead of speaking aloud, he focused his thoughts and feelings, trying to project them clearly. "We are humans. We come from a small world called Earth. We seek understanding and friendship with all intelligent beings. How long has it been? The voice asked, and the crew could feel immense loneliness behind the question. How long since the children of the first ones returned to the stars? The crew exchanged amazed looks. Yejin leaned forward, her historian's mind racing with implications. Are you one of the first ones? The predecessors who came before our civilizations? I am the last of the gardeners, the voice replied, and images flooded their minds. They saw a beautiful galaxy filled with young civilizations just beginning to explore space. They saw the predecessors moving among the stars, not as conquerors, but as teachers and guides, helping younger species develop technology and wisdom. We planted the seeds of life and consciousness throughout the galaxy, the voice continued. We watched over the young races as they grew and learned. But we knew our time was ending. We were becoming something beyond physical existence. Before we transcended, we needed to choose successors, inheritors who would carry on our work. More images flowed, the predecessors testing dozens of species, looking for specific qualities that would make good guardians of the galaxy. Most species failed because they were too aggressive, too focused on power and domination. Others failed because they were too logical, lacking the emotional depth needed to truly care for other beings. We left guardians like myself to watch and wait, the voice explained. For millions of years, I have tested the species that approach me. All have failed. They seek to conquer, to study, to control. None have approached with open hearts and peaceful intentions. Until now. Wu Jin felt tears streaming down her face as the full emotional weight of the artifact's loneliness hit her. You have been alone all this time, waiting for someone to understand. Yes, the voice replied, and the sadness in it was heartbreaking. I had begun to believe that no species would ever develop the qualities the gardeners valued, but you are different. You approach with curiosity rather than greed. You seek understanding rather than conquest. You offer friendship rather than demanding submission. Hyun-woo, the diplomat, sensed an opportunity. What qualities were the gardeners looking for? What did they want their successors to possess? The answer came not in words, but in feelings and concepts that flowed directly into their minds. Creativity, the ability to imagine new possibilities and find unexpected solutions. Empathy, the capacity to understand and care about other beings' feelings and needs. Adaptability, the willingness to change and grow when faced with new situations. Hope, the refusal to give up even when circumstances seemed impossible. These are the gifts that allowed the gardeners to nurture an entire galaxy, the voice explained. These are the qualities that younger species must possess if they are to inherit our legacy. Jun-ho suddenly understood. That is why you destroy military fleets but spare civilians. You are not defending yourself from attack. You are testing to see how different species respond to the unknown. Exactly, the voice confirmed. Those who approach with weapons and aggression reveal their true nature. Those who come in peace and seek understanding show wisdom. But why now? Yoon-ji asked. Why are you affecting the nearby star systems? Why reveal yourself after so long? The answer was both terrible and wonderful. My power is failing, the voice admitted. I have maintained this form for over 4 million years, far longer than was intended. If I do not find worthy successors, soon I will fade away and leave the galaxy without guardians. The disturbances you have detected are not attacks. They are symptoms of my declining ability to maintain stability. The implications hit the crew like a physical blow. If the artifact, the guardian, died without choosing successors, there would be no one to protect and guide the younger species of the galaxy. Wars would rage unchecked. Civilizations would rise and fall without wisdom to guide them. The galaxy would descend into chaos. But you have given me hope, the Guardian continued, and its mental voice was filled with joy. In you, I see the qualities the gardeners valued most. Humanity may be young and seemingly primitive, but you possess gifts that older, more advanced species have lost or never developed. Yejin's eyes widened as she understood what was happening. You want to pass your responsibilities to us. You want humans to be. The news hit Unity Prime like a shockwave. Hope's dream had not only survived contact with the Void Nexus, they had established communication and returned with revelations that shattered every assumption about galactic history and humanity's place in it. Chancellor Vextar stood before the emergency assembly, his blue face pale with disbelief as he read the human mission report aloud. The great chamber, which had echoed with laughter at human expense just weeks earlier, was now deadly silent. According to the human delegation, Vextar's voice cracked slightly. The artifact is actually a guardian left by the predecessor civilization. It has been testing species for millions of years, looking for worthy inheritors of ancient knowledge and responsibility. The silence stretched on. Several alien delegates stared at their translator devices, certain they had malfunctioned. General Thakamor was the first to speak, his voice filled with rage and disbelief. "This is impossible! Humans are Class 9 auxiliaries. They clean our stations and serve our food. They cannot possibly be chosen successors to the greatest civilization in galactic history." But even as he protested, doubt crept into his voice. The humans had succeeded where every advanced species had failed. They had made peaceful contact with something that had destroyed entire fleets. Taimin stood at the human delegation table, no longer relegated to the back row. For the first time in 50 years, every alien eye in the chamber was focused on him with something other than contempt. "The Guardian was very clear," he said, his voice steady and confident. "Humanity possesses the qualities the predecessors valued: creativity, empathy, adaptability, and hope. These are not weaknesses as you have long claimed. They are strengths." The Hive Queen of the Veltar clicked her mandibles nervously. "But surely the Guardian made some mistake. Humans are primitive, emotional, illogical." "Those exact qualities are what allowed us to succeed," Taimin replied. "While your species approached the Guardian with logic, aggression, and the desire to control, we approached with curiosity, respect, and the offer of friendship. The Guardian has been waiting 4 million years for someone to treat it as a being, rather than an object." An ethereal delegate shimmered with what might have been fear. "What exactly is this Guardian offering humanity?" Taimin smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Complete access to predecessor technology and knowledge, guardianship of the galaxy, the right to guide and protect all younger civilizations." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "In other words, everything you have denied us for 50 years is about to become ours by right." The chamber erupted in chaos. Dozens of alien voices shouted in different languages, all expressing the same basic sentiment. This could not be happening. But while the aliens panicked, things were moving quickly in human space. Earth's government had accepted the Guardian's offer within hours of receiving the report from Hope's dream. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would take on the role of galactic protectors. The transformation began immediately. The Guardian, relieved to finally have found worthy successors, began sharing its vast knowledge with human scientists and engineers. Technologies that were beyond the dreams of the most advanced alien civilizations flowed into human databases. Dr. So Young, who had replaced Bo-Ra as head of human scientific development, watched in amazement as her computers filled with information about faster-than-light travel, matter manipulation, energy generation, and technologies that seemed like magic. "We are not just catching up to the other species," she reported to Earth's leadership. "We are leaping thousands of years ahead of them. The Guardian's knowledge makes everything the aliens possess look like stone tools." Meanwhile, construction began on humanity's first true starship fleet. Using predecessor designs, human shipyards worked around the clock to build vessels that dwarfed anything else in the galaxy. These ships were not weapons of war. They were tools of exploration, diplomacy, and protection. Commander Chan Wu, formerly a minor officer in Earth's small defense force, found himself appointed as humanity's first fleet admiral. "These ships are incredible," he reported after the first test flight. "They can travel across the galaxy in days instead of months. Their shields can deflect any known weapon, and their sensors can detect life signs from 1,000 light-years away." But perhaps the most important change was in humanity's approach to galactic politics. No longer would they sit in the back rows of the council chambers, ignored and dismissed. The Guardian had made it clear. Humans were now the rightful leaders of galactic civilization. The alien species quickly realized their positions had changed dramatically. The Zephyrians, who had controlled the most important trade routes, suddenly found human ships appearing in their territory with technologies that made their own vessels obsolete. Chancellor Vexitar attempted to maintain his authority, issuing orders for human ships to leave Zephyrian space immediately. The response came from Admiral Chanwu himself, transmitted to every alien government simultaneously. The era of species thinking they own parts of the galaxy is over, Chanwu announced, calmly. The Guardian has made humanity the protectors of all civilizations. We will go where we are needed, when we are needed. No species has the authority to restrict our movements. To prove the point, a human fleet of 50 ships appeared in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld within hours. The ships made no aggressive moves, but their mere presence sent a clear message. The balance of power had shifted completely. The Corvan Empire, proud of their military might, attempted to challenge human authority directly. General Thakmor assembled the largest fleet in Corvan history, over 300 warships, and ordered them to intercept a human diplomatic mission. The confrontation lasted exactly 17 seconds. The human diplomatic ship, piloted by Commander Jamin, simply activated a defensive field that the Guardian had taught them to build. The Corvan weapons fired harmlessly into empty space as their targeting systems failed to lock onto something protected by predecessor technology. General Thakmor, Jamin's voice came over the communication channels, calm and patient. We have no desire to harm you or your people, but we will not be threatened or intimidated. Please withdraw your fleet before someone gets hurt. Thakmor, in a rage, ordered his ships to ram the human vessel. The results were predictable. As the Corvan ships approached, the human ship simply phased out of normal space-time, becoming temporarily intangible. The Corvan fleet passed harmlessly through empty space, while the human ship rematerialized behind them. This is your final warning, Jamin announced. We are not your enemies, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Faced with technology beyond their understanding, the Corvan fleet retreated in humiliation. Word of these encounters spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The species that had mocked humanity for decades suddenly found themselves desperately seeking human favor. Diplomatic missions arrived at Earth daily, offering trade agreements, military alliances, and territorial concessions. The Veltar Hive Queen, who had referred to humans as livestock, now sent gifts of rare minerals and technology, along with formal apologies for past insults. The Nexari, who had dismissed human science as primitive, requested permission to study alongside human researchers. Even the proud Axiom Collective, artificial intelligences who considered themselves the pinnacle of logical thought, admitted that human intuition had solved problems their vast computational power could not. But the most dramatic change came during the next council session. When the representatives gathered in the Great Chamber of Unity Prime, they found the seating arrangement had been completely reorganized. The human delegation now sat at the head of the chamber in seats that had been specially constructed from materials that seemed to bend light around them. Taemin, no longer a dismissed diplomat but now ambassador extraordinary of the Galactic Protectorate, called the session to order. Fellow representatives, he began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber, we gather today to establish new protocols for galactic governance. Humanity has accepted the role of galactic protectors as appointed by the Guardian of the Void Nexus. We will use this authority wisely and fairly, but we will use it. The alien delegates sat in stunned silence. Many of them were the same beings who had laughed at human proposals just months earlier. Our first priority, Taemin continued, is establishing justice and equality for all species. No longer will civilizations be classified by arbitrary hierarchies. No longer will some species be considered superior to others. Every intelligent race will be judged by their actions and intentions, not their technology or military power. Chancellor Vexitar raised a trembling hand. Ambassador Taemin, he said, his voice lacking all its former arrogance. What does this mean for existing governmental structures? The coalition has maintained order for thousands of years. Taemin's expression was polite but firm. Those structures failed to maintain true order, Chancellor. They maintained dominance by the strong over the weak. Under human protection, every species will have an equal voice in their own governance. Tapu. Implications were staggering. Species that had been enslaved or oppressed for centuries would now be free to determine their own destinies. Powerful civilizations that had ruled through fear and intimidation would have to earn respect through... 1 year after the first contact with the Guardian, the galaxy was a completely different place. Earth had become the unofficial capital of galactic civilization, its blue oceans and green continents now home to diplomatic missions from hundreds of species. The planet that had once been dismissed as a backwater world was now the center of a new golden age. Ambassador Seung-ho stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, humanity's first major construction project using predecessor technology. The station orbited Earth like a jeweled crown, its crystalline spires gleaming in the sunlight. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from dozens of species arriving and departing, all seeking an audience with humanity's new government. "Hard to believe, is it not?" said a familiar voice behind him. Sung-ho turned to see Dr. Na-young approaching, her diplomatic robes flowing around her as she walked. She had been appointed as humanity's first director of interspecies relations, responsible for managing the delicate process of integrating former enemy species into the new galactic order. "Sometimes I wonder if I am dreaming," Seung-ho admitted. "A year ago, I was a minor trade negotiator whose proposals were laughed at by alien bureaucrats. Now I am the galactic premier, and those same aliens send me daily reports asking for guidance." Na-young smiled. The Guardian chose well. Humanity was ready for this responsibility, even if we did not know it ourselves. Their conversation was interrupted by an aide who approached with obvious excitement. "Premier Seung-ho, Director Na-young, the morning briefings are ready. You will want to see these reports." They made their way to the central conference room, where holographic displays showed the current state of galactic affairs. The changes over the past year had been remarkable. The Moralian homeworld, once terrorized by pirates, was now protected by a human peacekeeping fleet. The small species had not only survived, but thrived under protection, developing new technologies and expanding their population for the first time in centuries. The slave colonies operated by the Veltar had been liberated, with human mediators helping former slaves establish their own independent governments. The Hive Queen, faced with the choice between cooperation and isolation, had agreed to completely restructure her society along more egalitarian lines. The Corvan Empire, stripped of its ability to intimidate weaker species, had discovered talents for engineering and construction that they had never needed to develop during their military dominance. General Thakmore himself now served as an advisor to human peacekeeping forces, his tactical knowledge proving valuable when used for protection rather than conquest. The most interesting development, Na-young reported, is from the Zephyrian territories. Chancellor Vextar has implemented the most comprehensive social reforms in his species' history. They have eliminated the caste system that kept lower-ranking Zephyrians in poverty and opened their educational institutions to all citizens. Seung-ho nodded with satisfaction. "And the Nexari?" "They have become our most enthusiastic partners in scientific research. Their crystalline structure allows them to interface directly with predecessor technology in ways even we cannot. The research station they are building near the Guardian promises to unlock even more ancient knowledge. The Guardian itself had become humanity's greatest teacher and ally. The ancient intelligence, no longer alone after millions of years, shared its vast knowledge freely with its chosen successors. Human scientists worked alongside the Guardian to understand technologies that seemed like magic, while human philosophers helped the ancient being adjust to having companions again." General Dae-hyun entered the conference room, still wearing the simple uniform that had become standard for the Galactic Defense Force. Unlike the militaristic organizations that had dominated the galaxy before, the GDF was focused entirely on protection and peacekeeping. Their ships were powerful enough to stop any aggressor, but their primary mission was to help rather than harm. "Morning report from the defense sectors," Dae-hyun announced. "The Outer Rim territories are finally stable. The last of the pirate fleets surrendered yesterday rather than face our peacekeeping forces. We have also completed the establishment of emergency response stations in all major star systems." "Any resistance to our authority?" Seung-ho asked. "Less and less each month," Dae-hyun replied. Most species have come to appreciate the benefits of our protection. Trade routes are safer than they have been in centuries. Weaker civilizations no longer live in fear of stronger neighbors. Even former military powers are adapting well to the new order. It was true. The galaxy had never been more peaceful or prosperous. Without the constant threat of war and exploitation, species were free to develop their unique talents and cultures. Art, science, and philosophy flourished as never before. But perhaps the most satisfying changes were personal ones. Taemin, once ignored and dismissed in council meetings, now received daily communications from alien leaders seeking his advice. The same species that had once mocked his proposals now studied human diplomatic techniques, recognizing their effectiveness. Bo-Ra, whose scientific research had been rejected without review, now led the galaxy's most advanced research institute. Her work on quantum energy patterns, once dismissed as primitive, had become the foundation for new transportation and communication technologies. Dong-Wu, who had spent years crawling through service tunnels while aliens made jokes about human intelligence, now managed the construction of the largest space station ever built. His practical experience with alien technology, gained through years of repairs and maintenance, made him invaluable to human engineering projects. The irony was not lost on any of them. The very qualities that had made aliens consider humans inferior, their emotionalism, their intuition, their tendency to approach problems creatively rather than logically, had proven to be exactly what the galaxy needed. As the morning briefing continued, Sung-Ho reflected on how much had changed. The Great Chamber on Unity Prime, where humans had once sat in the back row like unwanted guests, was now used primarily for historical tours. Real governance took place on Earth and in human space, where decisions were made based on compassion and wisdom rather than power and intimidation. "There is one more item," Na Young said, her voice taking on a tone of ceremony. "Today marks the first anniversary of our acceptance of the Guardian's offer. The alien delegations have requested permission to hold a formal recognition ceremony." Sung-Ho raised an eyebrow. "What kind of ceremony?" "They want to formally acknowledge humanity's authority and express their gratitude for the new order we have established. It would be largely symbolic, but the symbolic value is significant." The ceremony took place that evening in the Great Assembly Hall of New Geneva Station. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy attended, dressed in their finest ceremonial garments. The hall itself was a masterpiece of human and predecessor architecture, with soaring ceilings that seemed to reach into infinity and walls that displayed real-time images of peaceful worlds throughout the galaxy. One by one, the alien delegates approached the human leadership, each offering formal recognition of humanity's role as galactic protectors. But these were not the grudging acknowledgments of defeated enemies. These were genuine expressions of gratitude from species that had found peace and prosperity under human guidance. Chancellor Vextar was among the first to speak. The proud Zephyrian, who had once dismissed humans as barely sentient, now stood before them with obvious respect and humility. "On behalf of the Zephyrian Confederation," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall, "I acknowledge humanity as the rightful protectors and guides of galactic civilization. Under your leadership, my people have discovered virtues we never knew we possessed. You have shown us that true strength comes from helping others, not dominating them." As he finished speaking, Vexitar did something that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. He knelt before the human delegation, his head bowed in genuine respect. The Hive Queen of the Veltar followed. The massive insectoid, who had once called humans livestock, now spoke with a voice filled with wonder. "The Veltar have learned the value of individual consciousness and choice under human guidance," she announced. "We have abandoned the hive mind that enslaved our own people and embraced diversity and freedom. For this gift, we offer our eternal gratitude." She too knelt, her 6 arms folded in a gesture of respect. General Thakmor of the Corvan Empire stepped forward next. The warrior who had once threatened to destroy human ships with ramming attacks now wore the insignia of the Galactic Defense, Force with Pride. "The Corvan Empire has learned that true honor comes from protecting the weak, not conquering them," he declared. "Under human leadership, we have found purpose beyond warfare. We have become builders and defenders rather than destroyers." His kneeling was perhaps the most symbolic of all, representing the transformation of the galaxy's most militaristic culture into a force for peace. One by one, every major species in the galaxy made similar declarations. The Nexari praised human intuition in scientific research. The Ethereals admired human emotional depth in diplomatic relations. Even the Axiom Collective acknowledged that human creativity had solved problems their pure logic could not. As the ceremony reached its climax, something unperceived,